Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Virtual College Exploration for all North and South Carolina students, sponsored by the Carolinas Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at CACRAO.org. This presentation is being recorded, and this will be available within about a week at the same website, CACRAO.org. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Good morning. We certainly appreciate you all joining us to hear a little bit about essay writing do's and don'ts. I am Ulisa Bold, and I serve as the Executive Director of Admission at Fayetteville State University, located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so let me tell you a little bit, just a few things about Fayetteville before we get started, and certainly allow my colleagues to introduce themselves as well. Again, located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We have a True Blue Week, one of our virtual open houses, coming up in the next week or so, October 19th through the 23rd. We offer virtual tours on 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. daily. We are rolling admission. And for fall 2020, our average GPA was a 3.2 with an average SAT of a 930. We are a test waiver school for the 2021 term for next year. So all terms in 21, we'll be waiving the application, waiving the test, actually, the test. So that's a little bit about Fayetteville State. And of course, you can see a little bit of additional information on the side. And I'll turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves as well.
Good morning. So glad to have you all join us today. My name is Kaylin Asif. I'm the Director of Admission at Hollins University. Hollins University is a small liberal arts women's college in Roanoke, Virginia. So if you're not familiar with the region, we're right in the Blue Ridge Mountains, about 2 hours from Winston-Salem, 3 hours from Charlotte, and 3 hours from Raleigh. We're located in a really great location with several other colleges and universities close by. A couple of important things to note is that we are offering on-campus tours. There are private tours that we're offering daily at 10 and 2 p.m. So if you're interested in coming to campus, we are practicing physical distancing. We require a health screening, but you're welcome to join us for a private tour on campus. We also have Saturday tour opportunities. We have a number of virtual experiences taking place as well. They range from topics like this to student panel opportunities, so lots taking place. We are going to be doing an open house on December the 5th, and that is going to be limited in numbers. So if you are interested in coming to campus for an open house, you can come on December the 5th, but we will be limiting the participants for that event. In addition, we have some deadlines to keep in mind. Our November 1st is our early decision deadline. That is that binding deadline. November 15th is our early action deadline. And then February 1st is our regular decision deadline. Students that are admitted are automatically considered for merit-based scholarships that start at $24,000 and go up to full tuition. And you can see our averages listed on the screen there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my.
Hello, everyone. And again, thank you so much for being here and joining us for a wonderful discussion. My name is Kimberly McCullough, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Diversity and Access within the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at UNC Charlotte. So we are the second largest public institution in the state of North Carolina with just over 30,000 students on our campus. So there's a lot of great ways that our students are able to learn from each other in addition to our faculty and staff. At UNC Charlotte, we are hosting our fall virtual open house on Saturday, October 24th. So that's an opportunity for you all to meet with any professors or faculty members or learn more about the majors that you're interested in. So I would recommend registering for that through our Future 49er portal. In addition, we do have an early action non-binding deadline coming up on November 1st. As Lisa mentioned earlier, every public institution in the state of North Carolina will be waiving the SAT and ACT requirement for the 2021 application cycle. So for my seniors in the room, you can ignore the SAT and ACT averages, but I did post our middle 50% GPA ranges so that you all can get a good idea of what a competitive application looks like at UNC Charlotte. If you have any additional questions about that, we will provide our contact information and it's on the screen as well. But again, thank you so much for having us.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started in talking about what we plan to discuss during today's session. So, of course, you're here to learn a little bit more about the do's and don'ts of the college essay process, but a couple of key things that we're going to highlight: the importance of the essay tips and things to consider, the different essay options. So we're going to go into the Common App essays and what prompts you can use, and how you can really tailor those prompts to really highlight you. Common essay errors that we see when we're reviewing essays, samples of both strong and weak application essays, and then things to consider, especially being mindful of COVID. So I'm going to get us started talking a little bit more about the importance of the essay, and specifically the importance of the essay for admission. So many of you have probably heard of the term holistic review process. Many of us practice a holistic review process, especially in light of COVID, especially with test optional and test scores being waived. So the holistic review process is really looking at more than just your grades and your SAT scores. So not those kind of measurable numeric qualities that your application holds, but also those other factors that play an important role in your decision, like those extracurricular involvements and things like that. So the essay is a really great way to highlight and to incorporate aspects of yourself that you want us to review as a holistic application review. So another reason that it's an important aspect of the process is each year NACAC, which is our governing body, does a survey to see what's important when making a decision and receiving a qualified candidate. And the essay is within the top 5 things that admission counselors and admission professionals are focusing on when making their college admission decision. So it's important not just so that we can see who you are, but it's important for them in terms of knowing how you can fit within the community. It also helps to enhance other aspects of your application. So you probably noticed if you've started a common application or another application that there are aspects and spaces for you to include important information about yourself. What extracurricular involvements, where are you from, what kind of curriculum have you been taking advantage of? But that doesn't always clue us into those behind the scenes moments, right? So the things that we can't just blatantly see by looking at your application. So the essay can really expose us to learning more, so deepening our understanding of aspects that are on your application. You can also share new or more detailed information. So again, enhancing what's already included on your application or exposing us to new information that maybe you didn't include on your application, such as things maybe like a learning difference that you have. Being able to really talk about and highlight different things that make you unique and stand out among different candidates is something that's really important. So how can you contribute to the campus community? What is unique about you, so that we're continually learning about you and what you bring to the table. And it really can be your golden ticket. So especially for students that might be marginal admit, so students that have really great aspects of their application, but maybe some other aspects that don't usually fit that kind of mold or that the test score parameter, which this year is not going to be really relevant, but maybe you're missing just a little bit in your piece of your application. If you have a really strong essay, it really can be your golden ticket because that can help leverage you and lift you to the acceptance at that institution. Another great reason for making sure that you are working hard on these essays is for scholarships. So many schools require essays to receive scholarships. So some institutions review scholarships during admission and some require additional essay submissions in order to be considered for scholarships. So if you have a really strong essay in your bag already that you can just pull out and incorporate and alter if you need to fit a specific scholarship requirement, it's great. We want to make sure that you are prepared to be able to submit those essays for scholarship consideration. Essay content could also provide you additional opportunities for scholarships. So that piece where I talked about maybe you didn't expose everything on your application, but your essay tells a little bit more about who you are. There could be additional scholarship opportunities that come from that, from you exposing different aspects of your life and who you are. There could be scholarship opportunities that evolve from that. And then many scholarship applications outside of the institutional applications require essays. So thinking of different websites and organizations like fastweb.com, which is a really great scholarship resource, a number of those are going to require that you submit an essay. College board scholarship opportunities, niche scholarship opportunities. These are some really great websites to seek scholarships for college, but most of them do require an essay component. So it's great if you have a strong essay under your belt already.
All right, thank you, Kaylin. So next, everyone, we're going to be talking about some of the essay prompts and styles of essays that you all can expect to write about. So on the screen, we have posted the common application essay prompts for the 2020-2021 school year. Just as a reference for you all, these are the same essay prompts from last year as well. So I always recommend that for those who are not applying to colleges in this cycle, this is a great way for you all to practice with your essays in the future. As Kaylin mentioned earlier, you will have to write essays for scholarships, which is free money that you can use towards your tuition. So we highly recommend just taking some time and reflecting on the different topics, which ones are meaningful to you. And also note that not all colleges and universities will use the common application prompts for their college applications. So it is important that you all continue to do your research about the colleges and universities that you do have interest in and see what those application requirements are. But what we have highlighted on the screen are the first two essay questions on the common application. And we want to go into those in a little bit more detail because these are some of the most common essay topics that you will find. Okay, so first we have what's called the expository or topical prompts. Expository essays really discuss topics by using facts rather than opinions. So they want you to go into a little bit more detail to make a point. So the first question that we have on the screen, which is again by the Common App, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that's meaningful, so sharing your story. The great thing about the expository prompts are that it's a way for you to demonstrate kind of what you've learned. And this is something that a lot of teachers and professors and scholarships will ask you to write about because they want to see how you have been able to enhance your critical thinking skills or what type of situation has allowed you to be able to really get to a certain point in your life. So this is one of the common essay prompts that you will come across, and it's not just centered on this one question. So definitely make sure that you're taking note of what styles are out there. The next one we have is the narrative prompt. Now, this is something that I come across a lot, especially working with students who are transitioning from high school to college. So a narrative prompt really just wants you to tell a story from your life. So it's very personalized to the student and your experiences. And I highly recommend that if you are considering writing a narrative prompt, to definitely make sure that you're choosing a topic that you're passionate about and something that you're able to really talk about in detail to allow the reader to also kind of be present with you in that moment. Some of the most common essay prompts, once again, that we have listed on the screen is about a time that you were able to face a challenge, setback, or failure, and kind of what you learned from it. So the important piece here is to make sure that you're staying on topic and that the topics that you're choosing aren't necessarily immature, but again, that they're relevant to you in your life and something that you can really go into more detail about. And when I say immature topics, I did read an essay where a student was talking about tacos. So that's something that although they were passionate and loved tacos, it wasn't necessarily something that we were able to understand how they would be academically successful or socially successful on a college campus. So no matter what, you want to make sure that you're conveying your why within your story, whether it's a narrative or a topical prompt. All right, so next we'll talk about tips to picking your topic. This is very important for students, which is why we recommend brainstorming when you're going throughout the college application process and writing your essays. Really think about yourself as an individual and what your experiences are. Do you babysit your baby brother or sister on the weekends all the time? Are you working a part-time job? What are your family responsibilities like? What are you most passionate about in school? What clubs and organizations really hone in on your interests and allow you to be a leader? So think about some of the things that you're involved in, some of the things that how you spend your time is another great way to think of it. And also kind of pair those up with what qualities that you get from that. So we have a chart listed on the screen that will give you all a great idea of what types of qualities and skill sets that students are able to learn from their experiences. So when you're advocating for a group or a student, it shows that you're mature, it shows that you care, it shows that you're invested in others outside of yourself. So that is something that once again will convey in an essay the more that you talk about your experiences and kind of what you learn from those. We do have a couple of examples at the bottom. So if you're talking about advocating for Breast Cancer Awareness Month and how important that is to you, it will show the reader that not only are you an advocate for others, but you are mature, you are responsible. And again, just for students who are interested and really passionate about their clubs and organizations, if you participate in choir, dance, or in cheerleading or a sport, it will show that you're artistic or creative, you're responsible, you're confident, you're a leader, a team captain. So all of those experiences that you have are relatable in some way and can be talked about. So it's important that you all are able to kind of write out a list of what it is that you like, what it is that you do in your free time, or what it is that you do with your time while you're in school, and really relate that and make that relatable to the people who are writing your essays. Because remember, we're all humans and we completely understand. We've been through this process before. So definitely understand and know that we are here for you and we are excited for your next steps. And that is tips to picking your topic.
Lisa, you're muted.
Okay. I'm sorry. So now you have a topic, you know some of the things that you're going to talk about. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things to consider as you move through writing your essay. So it's all about planning, planning, planning. We talk about location, location, location. When it comes to real estate, well, with an essay, it's really about plan, plan, plan. Know exactly how you're going to move through the process, write out your thoughts so that you can present your best self. And in presenting your best self, you want to present your most authentic self. As a reader, I want to read exactly who you are. I don't necessarily want to you to talk to me as if you want to present what you think I want to know. So it's all about presenting your best self. One of the things that when you're writing an essay is, can I use this essay? Can I recycle an essay? Sure, you can absolutely recycle an essay, but you want to make sure that it's topic appropriate. So if it is an essay that you've used at one point and it's talking about this, if you need to tweak it to make sure that it meets the criteria of the next essay question or response, definitely you want to make sure that you do that. And when doing that, you want to make sure that you follow directions. So if the essay question says we need to provide a brief statement, maybe 50 words, and you give 600 words, or they ask for 600 words and you give 100 words, all of those things impact possibly your ability to move through and get the golden ticket, as my colleague said. Be specific. Details are key. So as you're moving through, you don't want to create large experiences without creating the details so that as a reader, I can see exactly what you're talking about through your words and the evidence and the foundation that you've supported by being specific in what it is that you're saying. Now, one of the things that I think that's very important when you're moving through something is to let it sit. Just let it sit, write it, let it sit, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. And then when you look at it with fresh eyes, you can then decide if you want to move forward or make some changes, and then you can send it on to have someone take a look at it for you, a family member, a friend, or a counselor, so that they can review it before you move forward. So now we talked about some of the tips. Some of the things that I want, that I think that are common errors is that we rely on platitudes or cliches, like it is what it is. You want to move away from little sayings like that because they become cliche in your essay, and that's not how you want to present yourself. Don't only rely on spell check. That's why letting it rest and sit helps, because spell check will certainly catch those words that you spell incorrectly, but you also want to make sure that it may not pick up grammatical syntax or missing words in sentences. So you definitely want to not just rely on spell check. And of course, waiting to the last minute, it will, all those small little errors that you may not be able to see if you had planned, and you don't want to present rushed work because you've waited to the last minute. And when you're writing an essay, you want to ensure that you have a central point, that your thoughts aren't scattered. So that, again, as a reader, I know exactly what your point is, and I can follow exactly your train of thought as I move through reading your essay. Again, going back to not following directions, that's just, it is what it is what it is. Not following directions. You want to make sure that you follow the directions as assigned. So it's important enough as a tip to be successful, but it's also a common error. And then finding balance between being too formal or being too casual, and making sure that in that casual component that you're not using emojis of any kind. That really tips the balance of being way too informal. Now, I know that a lot of us, the world, we have dealt with COVID-19. And many of you may think about, can I use that as my essay? And I ask that your point is valid, but you want to ask, will my COVID essay get lost? Will everyone write about COVID? Can you? And again, your point is valid. It's your situation. But as an essay, before you move forward, just ask yourself a few questions. Was your situation unique? Was there something about COVID that impacted your family in a significant way, in ways beyond just a missed prom or graduation or something that a lot of people experienced? Did your livelihood change? Did a parent lose a job, loss of income? Did you all did anybody in your family deal with any emotional impact of COVID? So if you want to write about it, you can, but ask yourself these questions so that your essay represents you, and it's not an essay that can be anybody's essay, if that makes sense. You want to make sure that it's specific to you and your situation, and not an essay that anybody could write, if that makes sense. We want to make sure that it is beyond just the basics of how COVID impacted the world, if you will.
All right, thank you. So hopefully you've had an opportunity to think about the topic that you're choosing, start navigating and thinking about things that you want to include and things that you don't want to include in your essay. And now I thought that it would be a great time to move over into discussing examples of strong essays. So these are actually screenshotted from essays that we've received in the past, and thought that it would be a great way for you to see kind of ways to captivate us as readers, because that's really important. Like Elisa just said, we want to hear your story, and we want to make sure that we understand who you are through that story. So that's important, that we can't just swap your name with somebody else's name and feel like we're still reading the same essay. So what can make your essay unique and stand out? So here are a couple essays. Share an essay on a topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, so this is always an option, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. And this essay was entitled, What Words Taste Like. I've always known words to be sticky, like cotton candy, artificial and messy. I know how it feels to have words melt on your skin and disappear, like mini M&Ms, gone after a moment of sweetness. this is just 2 sentences, and I'm already like, what is she going to talk about next? What is he going to talk about next? What are they going to, where are they going to go with this? And so I think having something that really stands out, that's still very authentic to who you are. I believe this student was interested in writing and in English, so this worked and made sense for their interest area. But having that really sensory detail that really drew the reader in was something that was really strong about this essay. And then the second example, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and new understanding of yourself or others. Picture a line of 20 exuberant second graders impatiently waiting for the organ to play when the saints come marching in. A monochromatic row of kings, popes, and nuns with the occasional martyr thrown in for good measure shuffled impatiently. Within these holy ranks I stood, a spot of bright red. I was adorned with a sword, carrot, and pirate hat, and I was doing my best to remember to use my inside voice. So again, using some quotations and just really being mindful of sensory detail and going into a really what seems to be strong narrative essay that they're going to begin discussing. And it just really provides the space to draw the reader in, and then you can really go into detail about how that specific line, how this specific discussion is really going to feed into what you're discussing. Because you don't want just to have this random sensory detail and really essay that starts where readers are being drawn in and then you flip the switch to go something else. You want it to be relevant to your topic. So what am I going to gain from knowing this information as it feeds into the rest of the narrative prompt? So examples of strong essays. And then unfortunately, we also have the opportunity to review some essays that are a little bit weaker. And a lot of times, like Elisa said, we find that a lot of the errors that are being made can be easily identified if students just review. So reread, take a step away, go back, look at that essay, and read it out loud, share it with someone that you trust so that you can make sure that you are not messing or having any errors. In addition, I know that there are times where you're copying and pasting maybe from a Word doc into Common App so that you can make sure that everything's tailored, but maybe that paste does not go according to plan. So make sure that you're reviewing before you submit the Common Application or before you submit that application essay to the application itself so that you know that all of that paste captured what you wanted it to in your Word document. So here are some examples that we received at Hollins University in the past. So the benefit Lee getting a Hollins education is a knowledge will obtain. So you can see just with this first essay that there are just some general spelling and grammatical errors that could have easily been caught and captured had the student just gone back and read and re-reviewed and submitted to a family member or somebody that they trusted to make sure that that it did have some good syntax and did have some grammar and the spelling issues were resolved before sending. So just being mindful of that. Another one that we see, which I included this, Holland University, we are Hollins, Hollins, is the perfect school for me. And we know that autocorrect exists, but it's being mindful of that as you're reviewing and making sure that it aligns. We often also see, I've worked for a couple of other institutions at this point in my career, and see students that have really good intentions of submitting an essay, but neglect to replace the institution name that they submitted to previously. So let's say you're applying to all 3 of our institutions and you send me your essay and it still says, I would love to be a student at Fayetteville State University. So that doesn't have the same, you could have written a beautiful essay and it could have been really captivating. And then at the end to see that, you know, of course, we're going to keep an open mind, but just be really, really conscious of when you're submitting all of your applications. We know that you have many on your plates that you're being really mindful of reviewing before submitting. And lastly, before we move into Q&A, just a few things to remember. A great essay is structured, cohesive, authentic, personal, descriptive, and corrected. And your essay can be great too. So just be mindful of these things as you're finalizing those essays, as you're beginning those essays, and as we are always here to help and answer questions and be a resource for you during your college admission process. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if you do have questions, we would love to answer those at this time. And you can see all of our contact information here, so feel free to be in touch with any one of us. Doesn't look like we have any questions in the question and answer yet. Here's a good question. Is the essay an MLA format and double spaced? So you, Lisa or Kimberly, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So traditionally, if there is an essay that requires a different formatting, it will say it in the description. But yes, typically all students will be writing in the MLA format and have the essay double spaced. Single lines can sometimes get a little bit crunched, so it would be easier for you all as well to stick with the double space option. But any additional formatting will be detailed in the essay description.
Great. Another really wonderful question, how do you show and not tell? So making sure that you're showing and not just telling the story. So giving maybe more in-depth examples and going a step further than just telling.
I think how you show is through descriptive. I'm thinking it's all about a description of how you tell your story, Lots of times you can say something as simple as I went to the store versus I drove to the store and I got in the car, and when I went to the store I did this. And so you are creating a scene as you tell the story. And so you're showing it through the reader by your description of exactly how you're moving through the essay, or how you're moving through your experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think specific examples are a really great way to show versus just tell. The more specific and detailed you can be in those examples, the more it's going to feel real and tangible to the reader, that it's less of a tell and more of a show. So is it good to have essays more of a conversation, or is that too casual? So I can start. I think that it's good to incorporate some dialogue into essays. I think it can break up, some of the essay, again, give specific examples or be really descriptive by adding dialogue. I have read some really great essays that were of people kind of in their own thoughts and able to create a narrative based on their own thoughts and some of their anxieties that they're feeling in life. So I think that you can really make it a narrative and be a little bit more casual in your tone while still being formal in your writing, if that makes sense. So still making sure to follow all of the writing kind of guidelines, making sure that your grammar, that your syntax, that everything is strong in all other aspects, but being able to get that casual vibe across through the discussion and the way that you're conveying the story. Kimberly, did you have something that you wanted to add?
No, I think you explained it perfectly.
Okay. Question about the length of the essay.
I think that goes back to what the directions are. If they've given you guidance on how long the essay should be or how long it shouldn't be, then a rule of thumb is to ensure that you're just following the directions.
Yep, I agree. All of the essays will define kind of what the word limit or capacity is. But if you want to be on the safe side, typically like a 500 word, 350 word essay is a good start. If you feel like you're getting too wordy, that's okay as long as you address the point and really get your point across and what you want to say. If it's less than 500 words, then that's perfectly fine.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. So a question about a specific prompt. So some students have a background, identity, or interest, or talent. Should this be a first person point of view from a personal story? And are there any prompts that should be more factual? So I think the goal of the college essay is to really hear your point of view. So of course we want it to be well written, but we want it to be from your authentic perspective, and we want to be able to know. So a lot of times the essay is really utilized to know and see if you're going to be a good fit for the institution. It's a way for us to look at the mission of our institution and what the community is, and how is this individual through the information going to be a good fit for that community. And so I think that it really benefits students to write their essay from the first person perspective, and making sure that you're speaking really to your experiences so that we can have that knowledge as we are reviewing your application. I won't be the only one to speak on that.
No, I agree.
Okay. What's something that you wish you'd known back when you were writing your essays for your college applications? Whew, this is going to take us back a little bit.
Woo! It's gonna take me further back than y'all. I think one of the things that I wish that I had known, I really wish that I had known that they wanted to hear my voice versus me trying to be what I thought they wanted. I feel like that I could have presented my true self in a more of an authentic way, versus just, oh, this is what they want to hear and this is what I'm going to write.
So if I could go back, I would tell myself to proofread. I was applying to so many colleges, and I just got tired, honestly, of writing all these essays, and I didn't proofread, and I submitted the application, and this was my top choice school. And then I had my sister read over my application, and she said, there's a misspelling here, right? And my heart sank, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is really going to be the one deciding factor as to why I don't get accepted. So to avoid that anxiety and that stress, make sure that you proofread and have a second set of eyes to look over your essays, because all of them are important, right? So you just want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that there is no grammatical errors, your sentence structure is intact. So yes, that's what I would do, proofread.
And I think that I remember my college essay, and I believe that I spoke about a topic that was already on my application. So I was an athlete in college, and wrote, obviously my extracurriculars had athletics there, and then wrote about athletics in my essay. Which is fine. I think I added a different perspective and lens, but that's not all of who I am. And so I think if I could turn back time and rewrite my college essay, I would have discussed something else that was really important to me in my life outside of athletics. All right. Can an essay be too inappropriate? Meaning that can an essay that's personally important to a student to share be too much to share?
I
think that's, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a great question, and I definitely think that's also subjective, right? You know what is too much on your end to share, but if you're comfortable telling your story and providing details, we as an admissions team are always willing to listen and read what a student is writing. Now, I wouldn't recommend going into the weeds with, specifics. If you went to your doctor's appointment and they drew blood and then it spewed out all over the place, like that's too much, yes. But if you want to tell us about a time that, you got a report back from a doctor and kind of what that diagnosis did for you and your family and how you were able to overcome that, that is something that is very personal, right? But it's also something that it doesn't provide too much of the specific details that aren't necessary. So it definitely just depends on you and what you're comfortable with and what you feel like allows the readers to get to know you more and kind of what you learn from it, and who you are as a person.
And if I could just add to that, I think one of the things, if you have a situation that has significantly impacted your life and who you are and how you move through difficult situations, I do think that as a reader, I'm interested in knowing that, because that shows that you have a wherewithal to be successful at any of our colleges or universities. So that could be a mental health issue, a loss of a parent, a loss of a dear loved one, those types of significant life situations that have impacted you. I think that should be something that you could be willing to share, and that as a reader, I would be interested in knowing.
Yeah, and there is a question about one of the most memorable essays. And I think that those essays tend to be really memorable because they are impactful. And, when you can hit our emotional side of things, then I think that, it stays with us a little bit differently. It has a different impact. But I just want to really reiterate what Kimberly mentioned about, not just telling the story, but the opportunity for growth, like going deeper, what did it mean to you? How did you grow from that experience? What did you learn from that experience? So not just telling about that specific incident, but what impact did it have on you, and how did you grow, or what did you gain? What did you do with that impact? I think that's a really important piece of that essay, and the effectiveness of the essay is really bringing it together and being able to share that information.
Yeah. For
those in the class of 2022, so current juniors, do you think talking about COVID community service opportunities is too quote unquote basic?
Too basic. It depends on how it's presented and what you've done. And I definitely think that once you write it, letting some readers take a look at it, family members, counselor, and teachers, because COVID volunteer efforts, what does that mean? I'd be interested in knowing, what does that mean with social distancing? How did you do it? And what was the impact on your life? And what was the impact on others? And so how you approach it, I think, would be important.
Yep, I would definitely agree.
I agree.
How can you tell if a point that you want to make is too silly or not serious enough?
Well, definitely getting a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion is always key when writing your essays. But really, think about it, if you were to read your essay back to yourself and allow yourself to feel that it was written by someone else, what would you think of the essay that you just read? So that's something that is key, to kind of have that perspective and get that lens on reading your essay back to yourself and aloud, because that will also allow you to fill in some of the gaps that you feel that might be missing. But yeah, I see we're almost done.
Great. I don't know if time's up. we have one more question that I want to, maybe Lisa can hit it real quick. What key details do you really like to see in the Why Us essay?
I think how you see yourself as a part of our community. What about us stands out? I think that's the one that comes right off the top of my head.
Agreed. Well, great. Well, I think we are out of time. So thank you so much. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll be sure to answer them in the next week or so. But thank you so much for your wonderful questions and for taking the time with us this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, well, like she just said, thank you all for joining us today. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey, and we'd really appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to check out the additional sessions at CACRAO.org. In about a week, like Kaylin said, you will be able to find this session's recording as well as other sessions recordings on the same website. And if they weren't able to get to your questions, they'll be able to reach out to you sometime next week to answer any questions that you have or to provide any additional information. Thank you all again for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.